Let's talk about Annie, the deck that our testing group took down to the first NA regional event in Houston, Texas. Big shout out to Eli for being ahead of the curve with a lot of his thoughts and the development of this Annie deck. You can find his thoughts in the description below. So of course, we are going to be playing Annie Legend. This has the ability of, at the end of your turn, ready 2 runes. This is an incredibly strong Legend ability, if not the strongest in set 1. Being able to fully tap out on your turn and make some incredibly aggressive plays and not be punished, because when you pass your opponent on their turn, you will get to ready 2 runes, and so much of our interaction only cost 2 energy, making it the perfect deck to go full out aggro while still having interaction to not be punished. Next up, we're going to talk about Annie Stubborn. This is technically part of our main deck, but I want to talk about the champion unit at this moment. This is one of 2 champion units that Annie can play, and pretty much everyone uses this one. It's very, very strong. So when you play me, return a spell from your trash to your hand. This means that when you have a single copy of a spell that's really important in your deck, something like a Ride the Winds or whatever, you can reuse it even if you only drew 1 that game. So this gives every single spell in your deck the possibility to be used a second time, even if you only draw 1, which is a really, really, really strong effect in card games. So Annie is a key important part of this deck, and you'll play her in almost every single game. Next, let's talk about the battlefields. So we are gonna always be starting Zon Warrens. Some decks, some matchups have different battlefield strategies. That is not the case. For Annie, the way that this deck is built, it is a always Zon Warren's first game, no matter what. We'll talk about why later, but this is going to be your starting battlefield. Then it's actually a really simple battlefield strategy. If you lost game 1 and you're going first in game 2, you're going to bring out the Arena's Greatest. Being able to speed the game up and each player getting 1 point is very good for a quick aggro deck like Annie. And if you won game 1 or you win game 2 after going Arena's Greatest, then you will go Dreaming Tree. Most often your opponent will choose to go first. If you won game 1, you bring this out, and then even if you lose game 2, you'll be able to get to go first with Arena's Greatest. So you can really easily pick how to start with all of your battlefields, and the plan is the same every single time. So Dreaming Tree is for your game 2 or 3 that you're going second, and you have so much synergy with this battlefield. It's unreal. Obviously, this is a very commonly used battlefield. A lot of other people have synergy with it, but it is still worth using in this list. Our rune split is definitely a little bit different than most other people's. Going into Houston, we noticed that a lot of people were on 7 red and 5 purple. Now, we are actually on, I should say, 6 Chaos and 6 Fury, because we are not on Falling Star in the whole list. And Falling Star is the main reason why you needed so much Fury, but we're actually on a card that takes 2 Chaos in the main deck. And so we really needed a more even split. This has felt like a very, very good rune count. We have not had any issues with this whatsoever. The only time that it does feel like it is a little lackluster is when you do start 2 Chaos and your only 2-drop in hand is a Vi. Outside of that specific situation, the rune split has felt perfect. All right, so let's talk about the main deck. We have one of the best 2-drops in the whole game, Traveling Merchant. 2-drop, 2 might, when I move, discard 1, draw 1. This has some really big synergies with our deck, especially just with the Annie champion unit in general. Being able to discard an assortment of different spells that you're not sure if you need that game to filter through and draw to more important cards, and then being able to recur any of those spells that you choose later on is really strong. So Traveling Merchant really helps fill up our options for Annie, just filter through our deck and score some early points as well. Next up, we are on 3 Pouty Poro. This is one that not everyone is playing 3 of. Some are on 2, 1. This is really, really important. So the reason that we chose to play 3 at Houston is because Annie and Kaisa are some of the most popular decks right now, and you really want that deflect to slow down their interaction. So being able to drop this against those kind of decks and being able to get those early points and not really... They're not really wanting to interact with it and lose too many runes. So Pouty Poro, really important against those red matchups and not too important against everything else, but it's still a good 2-drop just to have. Next up, we have 3 Vi. So this is not necessarily the 2-drop that you want to be playing early because it does have that Fury power cost to recycle a rune on turn 1, not usually a strong move. And you also kind of want to save this for a wombo combo kind of finishing kill thing. But, you know, in a situation where you didn't draw any other 2-drops, you're in a matchup where you still really want to get those early points, it's not the worst thing in the world to just drop a Vi. You know, it is a 3 might unit base, so it's very easy to take any battlefields in the early game and still even holding battlefields. A lot of 2-drops only have 2 might, so it can get you a lot of points fast, which is the point of the deck. It's mainly in here for a mid to late game card though. Then let's talk about our other early game unit, which is so strong. This is Sneaky Deckhand. This card is honestly one of the reasons that Annie is so strong. Being able to, if you're going second, starting 3 runes, being able to immediately start scoring a point and then untapping 2 runes to flash it back into your base or do whatever you need to so it doesn't instantly die is just insanely strong. Being able to play it to an open battlefield, your opponent moves one of their 2-drops up, you fight or flight their 2-drop off. Now you're going into your turn with a hold point. You can move your Sneaky Deckhand off, and you just kept a unit alive and scored 2 points faster than anyone else can in the whole game. So Sneaky Deckhand is just a really good early game and even late game unit to drop. It just does so much. It has pseudo acceleration in a way. It's just, it does so much, guys. This is a really good card. Speaking of good cards, we get to play 3 Kaisa Survivors. So because of the way that we're untapping and everything, the timing that we have to keep this unit alive is really strong. So unlike Kaisa decks that don't normally run 3 of these, we are running 3. Also, we're not starting with 1 in our champion unit zone, so we're not guaranteed to see 1 every single game like Kaisa is. So we want to run more and, you know, have the option to see it because it is insanely strong in this deck. We don't really care about the rune cost for the acceleration because we ready 2 runes at the end of every turn. We get to be a little bit more okay with a smaller rune count since we don't have to leave runes up for the opponent's turn. You know, we get to just untap them. So we don't need 8 runes so that we use 6 and leave 2. We can use 6 runes and then untap 2 on our opponent's turn, if that makes sense. So, but yeah, conquering, getting a point, getting a draw is insane. You can just drop this for 4 as well if you aren't accelerating it. And it just does pretty much everything we know on this deck. Then we are only on to Darius. So this was a change that happened fairly recently. I want to say about a week-ish before Houston. We decided that we realized we were just seeing Darius in our hand a little bit too often. Very frequently, we were pitching Darius's for, you know, Traveling Merchant and stuff like that. And it's an incredibly strong unit, but with how much filter and draw you have in this deck, you really don't need more than 2 in the list, we think. So this card's very good. Another accelerated unit, pseudo accelerated unit, I should say, because you can ready him. You know, pretty much like half our units can go to a battlefield the turn that they're played, essentially. And so that's just really strong and leads to the aggroness of the deck. Now let's talk about some spells. So we have Stacked Deck up first. So this is obviously insane. Being able to get this back with Annie is really nice because it can just be more dig and kind of like any card you want in a situation or something like that. So Stacked Deck's just unreal. Being able to play this on your opponent's turn comes up a lot in Annie because we are untapping 2. And so if we don't need to do interaction on their turn, we can just use Stacked Deck during their showdowns. So let's say that they move up to like an open battlefield or something like that. You know, you don't need to use any cards to save something. They start the showdown and you can just use the energy that you essentially got for free because of your legend ability and use that to play Stacked Deck on their turn and filter through and just find the cards that you want. So really strong in Annie. It doesn't feel like you're ever wasting tempo playing this card, and it just does everything you want, like every card in this deck does. All right, now we're on 3 Cleave. So we don't have a ton of huge might units. A lot of them are 2-3 might. Kaisa and Darius being our biggest, which still aren't that big. And so Cleave is really good, especially because we're playing Dreaming Tree. You can use Cleave after you move a unit to Dreaming Tree and get that draw card trigger. And so this is just going to help you beat aggro and fight for board. You know, that's the name of the game in this deck. So Cleave is doing a lot. All right, and then here is an important part of the deck list. 3 scrap heap. So something that's really important to note and is going to give you an advantage by actually watching this deck profile instead of just looking at a deck list is this is only in here for game 1. Do you remember earlier in the video I was saying that Zon Warrens is always your #1 battlefield for first game, no matter what deck you think you're playing against, whatever. Scrap heap is the reason for that. The amount of card draw that you get from scrap heap plus Zon Warrens is so insane. Not needing to rely on seeing a traveling merchant for this is really, really big. So we always play this game 1. It's in our deck list, right? And then you always go Zon Warrens. And then game 2 and 3, you always side out scrap heaps. It's going to give you more deck space to work with to bring in more specific tech items. And then now these scrap heaps aren't only a combo piece with traveling merchant. So it brings a lot of consistency, and you're going to find yourself having a much better match win rate if you are doing this kind of strategy instead of leaving scrap heaps in with Annie when you're not getting to use Zon Warrens. So this is our sideboard, easy sideboard guide, honestly, basically, is you just take out scrap heaps most of the time. All right, 3 flash. Some Annie players don't like this card. That's crazy. Flash is amazing. Being able to use it with Dreaming Tree so that you ready 2 runes at the end of your turn, you pass your opponent, they try to move up to Dreaming Tree and kill off one of your cards, making you lose that card, right? And instead, you play Flash with the runes that you got for free, essentially, and you draw a card from Dreaming Tree to get the flash back into your hand, and then you save your thing that was on that battlefield. It's unreal. And this is one of those reasons that I said, like we can kind of protect our Kaisas a lot better than actual Kaisa can. And this just allows you to really build a dominating aggro board presence, being able to save your units for free, essentially, because you got that tempo from the untap on your legend ability. It's just wild. It allows you to do so much more quicker than your opponent can. If you hold a battlefield ready, there's a really cool interaction where you can actually flash your unit back, and when a card moves from a spell, unless it specifically states to exhaust it, it will not exhaust it. So if you have a unit at a battlefield ready and you flash that unit back into your base, it will still be ready, and you could move that unit up to the other battlefield. So this is a really good way to synergize with like Ride the Winds, all this kind of stuff. So Flash is not only defensive to save your units, but you can actually use it to score points as well. Let's say that you ready the Winds a Vi up into a battlefield or something like that, or a Kaisa up into a battlefield, and they try to kill it with a Hidden Blade or something. You can now Flash as a reaction speed, which is very important, and bring your unit back so the Hidden Blade won't kill it. And if you use Ready the Winds to move it up, it's a ready unit, and so you could just move it right back into that battlefield. So this just does so much. And to not make this a hour-plus long deck list, I'm not going to talk about every single interaction that can happen, but Flash is one of the cards that can open up a lot of interactive plays. And so I would not run less than 3, especially if you're running the Dreaming Tree. I just don't think that's right. All right, let's talk about another really, really good card. It is our only hidden card in the whole list. It is a 2-drop spell, Fight or Flight. Action speed, move a unit from a battlefield to its base. So very similar to Flash. Flash is moving up to 2 friendly units to base, but this one is moving a unit from a battlefield to its base. So you could still do the kind of same shenanigans that we were talking about with Flash, but also really important is you can use this on your opponent's stuff. So when your opponent accelerates a Thousand-Tailed Watcher and tries to move it in to kill off all of your units there, you can just say, no, it's going to be off the base now. And, they had to exhaust their unit to move it up, so they're probably not going to be able to move it back up again. So, being able to use this on a Dead Bloom Predator that they're trying to get the tempo back with and everything, you'll have to pay that deflect cost, but it's such an insane tempo card to use for 2 energy on something that your opponent probably spent a lot more than 2 energy on. So that's kind of the theme of this deck, is that so much of your interaction just has 2 energy cost that your legend is just giving to you every single turn. So insane card, and it can do, again, so much similar to Flash. Let's talk about the most complicated card. So we actually have a video specifically talking about just this card on our Patreon. You can visit the link below. And this is the most complicated card in the game. It creates so many weird interactions and game states. And it's also honestly one of the best cards in the whole game. I'm not going to cover too much about it because, like I said, I don't want to make this over an hour, but you use this with Vi when you're at 6 points to do a nearly impossible to beat ending combo. So you play Vi from your hand, you use Vi's ability to recycle 1 from your trash and give her +1 might. You do that over and over and over again until you have, a 15 might Vi or something like that. And then even though that Vi is exhausted, you use Ride the Winds on that Vi. This is a 2-card 4 energy combo. Absolutely insane. And then Ride the Winds will move that Vi up and ready it into a battlefield. So then your Vi, fights whatever there, probably wins because your Vi is massive. And then it is a ready unit with ganking. And so you just move that Vi over again. So a 2-card 4 energy combo that is going to probably win you the game from 6 points. It's really, really crazy. You can also, this is very important to note, this is a action speed card, and that's why I said it creates so many complicated game states, and is one of the best cards in the game because you can do this on your opponent's turn in action speed when the chain is empty during a showdown. And you can even actually score on your opponent's turn. So there's some really crazy things. Not enough time to explain it in this video. Like I said, go check out the Patreon if you want a more in-depth video about it. But definitely one of the absolute best cards in the deck. And then this is where our list gets a little spicy, as we were running 2 main deck Rebuke in Houston. And this card is unreal. So there are so many interactions and matchups that this is just something that they can't deal with. So one of the issues with like Fight or Flight, for example, or Ride the Winds even, is that it can get defied from a opponent that is using Calm Runes, like Master Yi or something. They can't defy this because it has a 2 power cost. And so being able to, especially if you're against like Aurora Yi or something like that, where they're not really doing much, you're scoring a lot of points, and then they try to like end the game by just slamming down these big guys that you can't do anything about. Being able to rebuke their first Dead Bloom Predator or something that they put out, you'll have to pay 3 power total, 2 for rebuke and 1 for the deflect cost of Dead Bloom, but they can't defy it. And not everyone's running Wind Wall main deck. And so having this in the main deck just really solidifies those kind of matchups for you. And also, no one's really playing around this in game 1. So this felt like a very strong game 1 pick. It can return an opponent's Vi to their hand in the mirror match, which is really important because just fight or flighting the Vi off, if they just like play another Ride the Winds, then it basically did nothing. But putting it back into their hand means that they have to do a lot more that turn to try to win the game in 1 combo turn. So this can be a really good out for the mirror. It can put a Watcher back in hand, which isn't always great, but if you don't have that Fight or Flight, it can do everything that Fight or Flight can do, except it just is harder to interact with and sets them back a little bit more. Using this on something like Set is really good. It just like really, really puts them back on the amount of board presence they have. And, this deck is all about tempo, and this is a insane tempo card. So, and then the last card that we have in here is 2 Void Seeker. This definitely could be 3 of in the main. We just didn't find the space for it. But, this does a lot that you want. Again, we get to untap 2 runes at the end. So if you end your turn with 1 rune up, or I should say, if you move to your end phase with 1 rune ready, then you'll untap 2 more runes and you can play Void Seeker. And all you had to do was leave 1 rune ready after like your main phase essentially. And so this is pretty easy to use as interaction, and it makes it really, really hard for your opponent to even do anything in the early game or mid game. So definitely a great card. We just couldn't find the space for that 3rd copy. We do actually even have a side deck as well, since this is a deck that we took to a tournament. We have the 3rd Rebuke in here. Again, it's really important for the set matchups, mainly the Aurora matchups. If you're playing against like Aurora MF and stuff like that, being able to rebuke their first couple of guys that they put out just pretty much solidifies the matchup. It comes in handy with a lot of matchups, and it's just a good card to have a 3rd copy of. We also have 2 Fading Memories. This wasn't something that we were too sold on, but after testing Aurora MF over and over, we decided that giving the Dazzling Aurora temporary and them really not being able to interact with this card, they have to preemptively discard it with something like Sabotage or Mind Splitter. But once you are playing this card onto the Aurora, they don't really have much interaction. And so the nice thing is that if they're discarding it out of your hand with Mind Splitter specifically, then you can use Annie on the turn that they do, like, you know, then they finally go Aurora, and then you go to your turn and you just do Annie plus Fading Memories and you kill the Aurora. So it's really hard for MF specifically to actually deal with this card. The big thing is Sabotage recycles the card and does not discard it, so you won't be able to grab it back with Annie. So that's kind of their out to it, but it really helps the MF matchup. It's also pretty decent against Set. There's another rule that you don't get rid of temporary if you save a unit with the Set legend. So if you use this on a unit and they save it with Set on their turn, they will have to exhaust that unit as part of, you know, Set's ability, and then it will just temporary again on the next turn. So unless they're doing something like Showstopper to like utilize that unit that turn, it basically makes it so that they can't really save that unit. If they do, they're just going to keep trying to save it and not really ever being able to get to use it. So really good in the Set matchup, really good in the Aurora matchups. Be careful playing this against Aurora Yi because they can just defy this. It's a 4 energy with 1 power. It's the most possible that they can defy. So it's a really good tempo play for them to defy it. All right, and then we have 2 Gusts. So this is really nice when we're going into our Dreaming Tree turn. Being able to Gust, like especially Annie, since Annie, the champion unit, is a 3 might unit. Being able to play Gust, draw a card for that, and then put the Annie back in hand and be able to play Annie again later, and you know, saving her from battle where she would just go to the discard, you know, basically, you know, is a +1 in itself. And then Annie will get to get another card back from your graveyard. You could even get the Gust back from your trash. So yeah, it's just really cool there, but also being able to use this in the mirror to put your opponent's sneaky deck hands into their hand when they're trying to do that really fast, or just protecting your own units. Really strong. Again, this is a tempo aggro deck, so Gust is doing exactly that. Then we have 3 Noxious Hopefuls. So this is the only card that I'm like, you know, full transparency, we're recording this before Houston in order to get this as fast as possible to y'all, and this is the only card in the whole list that I am wondering if I actually might only run 2 Noxious Hopeful on the side. I might play the 3rd Void Seeker in the side instead of a 3rd Noxious Hopeful, but other than that, I'm feeling pretty locked in on this list. Noxious Hopeful is just pretty nice to replace, you know, dead cards when Gust or Fading Memories or whatever. It just isn't that good in the specific matchup. Noxious is just a really good thing to take scrap heaps out for and just to bring these in as a generic good card, because you do have a lot of 2-drops and such in the deck, and even playing like stacked deck can turn this online with the Legion effect. And so even on 3 mana, so your first turn going second with 3 runes, you could play stacked deck, find a Noxious Hopeful in those cards, or have started with one after your mulligan, and then play a Noxious Hopeful. And now your turn 1 play was filter through your deck and also put a 4 might unit on board, which is pretty darn good. So this is a pretty good unit in the deck. We just couldn't find the main board space for it. And so it just fits as a good generic card to take out the scrap heaps for and such. So that was already probably a longer video than I meant for it to be, but there is just so much to explain with this deck. And honestly, we barely started talking about the actual intricacies of the deck. So I'm sure we'll have some more content for y'all both on YouTube and more competitive, deep dive, intensive content on our Patreon as well. So make sure to hit that subscribe button, and special thank you to our $100 and above Patrons, Dave and Jun. Thank you so much, and we'll see you on the next video. Peace.